everyone. This is Dr. Julie Chen. I'm an integrative internal medicine doctor, co-founder of Wisdom in Wellness. I'm here today to talk about nutrition and how to stay focused and healthy and balanced and feeling good when you're spending all that time taking care of others. So thank you so much for all the healthcare workers out there for taking care of others and taking care of each other as colleagues. I want to focus a little bit about what's more logistically feasible for people with busy schedules and which nutrients and foods to focus on when you're busy working and doing shifts and caring for others. So first things first, I'd like to start with the foundational hydration. Obviously, water is super important. And so a lot of times people who are really busy can't keep track of how much water they've had. So having a pre-measured, like a big jug of water, like a big water jug would be really great, so that you can actually pre-measure out the water that you should be drinking. And then by looking at that and making sure you finish it, you ensure that you're actually getting enough water. I know a lot of times when we're busy working long hours, we're drinking a lot of coffee and caffeine, and that actually can dehydrate us, and coffee in the long run can actually deplete adrenal function. So that's something to keep in mind. Tea actually has less caffeine, even the caffeinated ones, and decaf coffee obviously has less caffeine. It actually still has some. So if it's, a way of diluting that while still keeping you, focused and energetic, while not dehydrating you, that would be great. And hydration, a lot of times when we're really tired is actually because we're not hydrated enough. So try to make sure that you're staying hydrated with water. I want to jump into some foods, like when we're on shift work or if we're working at the clinic and when things are busy, like what are some ideal meals to kind of bring with you and keep in the clinic and at the hospital. So, a lot of times when I talk to patients who have really busy schedules, and potentially even working where they may not have regular breaks for meals and foods, what can they bring and how that should be proportioned out as far as the different nutrient and food groups go. So one thing is, if you are someone where you're working where you don't get solid breaks where you can sit down for 30 minutes to eat, you might want to consider bringing a bunch of little meals so that it's easy enough to heat up and eat quickly. Obviously it would be ideal if you can have the actual time so that you can digest well, but if not, at least this way you can keep yourself fueled. If you do have time to sit down and have a real meal, the proportions I usually talk to patients about with protein, vegetables, grains, legumes, I'll go over briefly today. And vegetables in clinical studies are super great at decreasing inflammation, helping with providing nutrients and fiber and vitamins and minerals. A lot of people don't know that you can get a lot of calcium from vegetables, not just from dairy, for example. And so most meals, I usually tell patients to try to make it be 30-40% of vegetables, because it really is Mother Nature's medicine that's anti-disease and anti-inflammation. And having a wide variety of vegetables, I always tell my patients to try to get vegetables in the colors of the rainbow. And so when you eyeball your meal, seeing that there's a lot of different colors is always a good thing. So try to do that. And protein wise, I would definitely say try to give that maybe like 30%, 20% of the meal, primarily because a lot of people who are working long hours, you need the protein to just function and make neurotransmitters and chemicals in the body that are necessary. So making sure you have enough protein is really important. Now, the question of what types of proteins, obviously more plant-based would be ideal, or lower saturated fat food, combos or options would be great. So what are some of those? Well, they could be like chicken breast, turkey breast, fish, shellfish, egg whites, lean center cuts of pork. If you have to have red meat, maybe bison, so it's less saturated fat. So stuff like that would be really great. Nuts and seeds. Obviously, you're going to get some protein in your grains and your legumes if you pick the right ones. So moving to that category, the legumes and grains. So let's start with grains. So there are, in my book, great grains that are super balanced and won't give you an insulin spike and dip, and then the ones that are more sugary and potentially could cause more issues and make you hungrier and also make you more tired. So the grains that I typically will recommend for patients to have are quinoa, wild rice, millet, amaranth. Those are a little less sugary. Brown rice is better than white rice, but oatmeal even, those start to get a little bit more sugary, although there's fiber in those, better than white rice, obviously. But I would definitely look at more high protein, high complexity, high fiber type grains. And legumes, having a variety of different legumes in there are also really helpful because they are high in vitamins and minerals and fiber and nutrients. So I would say the rest of the plate would be maybe a combo of grains and legumes, so that this way you get a good balance of vegetables, protein, grains and legumes. And then the healthy fats, obviously things like avocado, using olive oil or avocado oil for high heat would be good. Olive oil would be more low heat. So that would be like an idea of what a balanced meal might look like. Now, I know a lot of times you may not even be able to have time to heat up anything. So snacks, what are some healthy snacks that you can have while working? So for example, like hummus with vegetables would be a great healthy one. But if you're feeling like that's not enough protein, throwing in some nuts and seeds in that would be great. Or even sesame seeds and stuff would be awesome to just get in some healthy fats and protein. Nuts. Now, a lot of times people are overeating on the nuts. So what I usually will recommend is try to eat the kinds that are less problematic if you did overeat a little bit. So like walnuts, pecans, almonds would be better. Like peanuts, macadamia, those can run into problems with a lot more saturated fat. So that's something to kind of really keep in mind. And also, when it comes to like vegetables and snacking, like the easier to carry ones, the ones that hold better if you just put it in the fridge and pull it out, like peppers and celery and things like that. I know there's a lot of questions about nightshades, whether it's okay or not, but the clinical studies basically showed nightshades are a problem for people who have a problem with nightshades. So a lot of times patients are not okay with eggplants, but they're fine with peppers, etc. So try to listen to your body and see what works for you. If obviously nightshades bother you, then don't have that. And, portion control is important. Obviously, we don't want to be working long hours and gaining weight. So I think prepackaging stuff into Tupperware amounts so that you're aware of how much you're eating is always a good thing. Sometimes patients will make their own little snacks, and I'm going to share some of the great ideas. Sometimes what patients will do is they'll use like one of those dehydrators and make like they'll mandolin like even beets and carrots and um, zucchini and pumpkin even, or their own potato chips. So they'll make those because that's healthier. I mean, I think sometimes within the US a lot of the foods are more processed, so it's much healthier to do it yourself if you have the time. If you don't, then try to buy as clean as possible and read the labels. So one thing that some of my patients will make, which I think are great little snacks, are quinoa clusters. So they'll take quinoa, cook it a little bit, and stick them together and bake them, and then they'll put cinnamon on there, and so it's kind of crunchy little treats. Cinnamon's great, helps with insulin sensitivity. There's so many health benefits to cinnamon. Helps with your gut also, just to name a few. And quinoa is awesome because it's got a good balance of like omega-3 is carbs, fats, protein. I mean, it's also high in fiber. Some of the nutrients it even has are like 9 essential amino acids, folate, iron, magnesium, manganese, phosphorus, potassium, zinc, B1, B2, B6, and there's even a little bit of calcium, niacin, and vitamin E. I mean, it's really a good potent, nutrient-rich grain or snack that you can have. So I would, that's something that you can potentially put into a little baggie after you've baked them into little clusters. Sometimes my patients will even use them as cereal in the morning, and they'll put some plant-based milk on there. That's also a great option. Now, sometimes people will ask me like, well, what are some of the vitamins and minerals I should really be making sure that I get, and if I can't get it in food, in supplementation. So vitamin D, there's so many studies about the benefits of vitamin D. It's more like a hormone in the body. It helps with mood, inflammation, disease regulation, cancers, etc. So immune support. There's even studies about vitamin D and supporting respiratory function when there's infection issues. So that's something that is really important to make sure you get enough of. Now, a lot of patients will ask like, well, what's a good number when you do labs, when you see on the labs what your vitamin D is? So the general recommendation for people, I think some of the baseline recommendation, obviously over 30 on the labs is important, but that's kind of bare bottom minimum. So I would probably say for men, the study suggests more 40 to 50. And then for women, we're looking at more like 50 to 60 to really help get people to have an optimal level of vitamin D to support. One thing that's really interesting about vitamin D, they even talk about pregnant women and vitamin D and how that may impact their baby. So that's something to really kind of keep in mind. And they really aim for vitamin D of about 50 for pregnant women, above 50. So, B vitamins, super important about taking them if you're low, to help with adrenal function, to help with uh, also energy support, mental cognition support. One thing that's a common misconception is that people think like, well, if I take a bunch of vitamin B, it's okay because it's water soluble. I'm just going to urinate it out. But you can still overdose on the B vitamins. I see it time and time again in labs for patients. So try to really monitor your levels on labs with your doctor and then take the appropriate ones, but not just B12, but B5, pantothenic acid is actually great for energy support. B1 thiamine is great for mental cognition support, energy. B2 riboflavin is great for even things like migraines, energy support. So I really, and another thing is a lot of people overtake B6. B6 can actually be nerve toxic if you take too much. A lot of the symptoms of overdosing on B6 is the same as underdosing on B6. So you definitely want to watch out for that and get your levels checked. And most of the time, it doesn't take that much to actually overshoot because the therapeutic range, like the safe range, is actually very narrow. So it's very easy to overshoot on the B6. So I would definitely keep an eye on that. And then regarding other, nutrients like zinc, great for your immune function, obviously, but a lot of people don't know that zinc can actually deplete copper. So if you're going to take zinc, you should probably take some copper and have both levels checked so that you're not overdoing zinc and underdosing on the copper. And then also zinc is great for sugar metabolism as well. And chromium also is great for insulin support. So those are things to kind of keep an eye out for. For as far as like sugar cravings. So I know a lot of the times when we're busy, we get a lot of sugar cravings when we're tired, especially. So that's something that I want to address to see what we can do that can be healthier for you guys to be able to get a healthy sugar craving satiation so that you're not eating chocolates and candy and all that. So one thing I like to tell patients to do is like, those old school like popsicle makers, you could put water with some lime and lemon and then put stevia or monk fruit in there. So then you can freeze it and that's actually refreshing. And that also will help to make sure you stay hydrated. Other things you can do, I mean, obviously like sweetening iced teas, like sweet tea, but using monk fruit and stevia would be great. If you want to have fruits, obviously that's much better than eating processed sugars, but you want to be careful about the glycemic index and glycemic load. The difference is glycemic index is looking at the sugar load per intake, but when you look at the glycemic load, it's about how much someone eats. So for example, berries are actually low in glycemic index, but because they're easy to overeat, when you eat a lot, then the glycemic load goes up, which is why some patients can still have high triglycerides and prediabetes or diabetes eating fruits. So that's something to keep in mind. I know bananas are really easy to kind of carry around and eat, and people feel like it's a lot of potassium, which it does. But, ironically, broccoli and avocado actually has a lot of potassium too without all the sugar load. And the reason I say that is because bananas actually have a high glycemic index. It's about 97 or so, and like it's similar to like white sugar is 100. So it's kind of like eating white sugar, except there's a lot more nutrients in it. But the problem with that is that when you eat something like that, there's a chance that your sugar insulin spike and dip will leave you more lethargic and tired and achy and potentially with problematic with weight gain. So these are some of the things that is important to kind of think about. And then also vitamin C, again, isn't just in fruits, they're also in vegetables. So I feel like vegetables get a bad rep, but they're actually Mother Nature's like anti-disease, anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory type of food for medicine. So really kind of keep an eye on that. One last caveat I want to leave you with the vegetable part is for those of you with kidney stones, when you eat too much of the high oxalate vegetables like spinach and stuff, you could potentially get oxalates in the urine, which could put you at risk for kidney stones. So just always stay super hydrated. And the way to kind of go around that is to try to eat variety. Like don't just eat a huge amount of spinach every day and that's it. Do you know what I mean? So like try to mix that up with different vegetables and look at which ones are high and low oxalates and try to mix that up. And hydration all around helps with energy, recovery, your cells need it for functioning, and also keep you from things like kidney stones and all that stuff. So hopefully this has been really helpful for you. If there are any questions, go ahead and reach out to Caring4OurCaregivers.org and they can try to reach out to me for any questions. And also, if there's any interest or questions, you can also reach out on wisdominwellness.com. If there's any future questions that I can help with, I'm always happy to do so because I am really grateful that you're all out there helping to take care of patients and each other. And so I really wish you well and I hope you all stay safe.